Hello there, and here we are for episode 2 of our wonderful new series, Tales from Backstage. Oh, it's true, this is very much the next big thing of a video, and if you haven't figured out already, we are right now about to look at a rather compelling real-life showdown between two of WWE's greatest ever grapplers. That's right, I'm Gareth, this is What Culture Wrestling, and you're about to watch Tales from Backstage, Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle. In 2002, WWE chaos reigned. So 2002 was the year that saw former company icon Hulk Hogan brought back into the fold, heel WCW Hollywood persona and all, against the wishes of the locker room, baby-faced in light of the nostalgic warmth towards him from the crowd, re-strapped as WWE champion for a box office tanking month and a half, and then binned back off again by the end of the summer. What a ride it was, eh? What a damn ride. The New World Order itself followed a near-identical trajectory, save for the turn, of course. Neither over babyfaces nor cool heels, the idea that transformed the North American wrestling landscape in the 90s lasted less than 5 months in the brutal 2002 WWE machine. Meanwhile, 2002 was also the year the other biggest stars in company history, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, almost simultaneously signaled the beginning of the end of their real full-time runs, albeit in enormously different fashion. The Great One would have fallen victim to Hogan's aforementioned hot dogging had he not been as electrifying as he claimed at WrestleMania 18. But outside of a brief WWE Championship run in July and August, he was finally done as a regular after SummerSlam. The Rattlesnake infamously went sooner than that. One fallout too far with his unraveling creative by July resulted in Austin going from the penthouse to the doghouse in ruthlessly aggressive fashion, creating a rift that took the fat end of a year to heal and saw him off as a full-timer once and for all. It was part-time Austin from there on out. Their post-split treatment of the character was the only real act of ruthless aggression, even though the phrase inexplicably stuck around to define the post-Attitude Era hangover the entire organization was trapped in. The era I became a fan, lucky me. Yeah, and about that, in 2002, with some of the biggest WWE and WCW names past and present strolling in and out of the Stamford revolving doors, the organization did about as well at creating new stars as it did holding on to its last initial. Panicked pushes and demotions resulted in the out-of-form Triple H and The Undertaker being relied on to do far more than they were capable of as top guys, with a slew of drab matches and or partially damaged careers left as legacies. The never say never moments piled up enough to make your head spin. WWE brings in Eric Bischoff? Shawn Michaels returns? Triple H does a clean job? What? The game, dressed as Kane, mimicking sexual intercourse with a mock corpse dressed as a cheerleader, was probably the most fitting visual of the decade. He was scraping the side of a coffin when he reached for the spaghetti bolognese-like mulch to throw at the camera as he screwed her brains out, as he put it. But it may as well have been the proverbial barrel, folks. This, right here, was 2002. Rudderless and seemingly lawless, with few saving graces to speak of. Appropriate then that 2002 was the year that, with all of the above going on, two of those saving graces battled each other in a real backstage fight. Oh yeah, we got to the series title in the end, I was just teasing you for a while there. A glimmer of hope for WWE to break out of a barren creative period could be found being carried across the broad shoulders of an ex-amateur that had been on Jim Ross's radar for years. Still the executive vice president of talent relations and with mountains of respect from being the unaccredited architect of the company's second boom period thanks to the crucial signings of people like Mick Foley, Steve Austin, and, Dwayne Johnson, Ross had tenure, universal respect, and a keen eye for the next wave to come through. Lesnar was that wave, or rather, his traps were. The next big thing was the talk long before it was made canon by his nickname. Ross had dispatched Gerald Briscoe to watch him long before sports entertainment would have even appealed as a career move for the Beast. It was more shrewd business from JR, who understood that not everybody was going to be taken simply with the allure of a shiny gold belt to put up on the mantelpiece. Or piece, or whatever it is, I don't know. As he put it on the Wrestling Reality with Justin LeBar podcast at the time. And no, I'm not going to do a bad impression of JR because I love him too much to even attempt. So, Gerald Briscoe had scouted Brock Lesnar for 2 years and recruited him so that Brock Lesnar would know that we were waiting for him. And we could have signed him a year earlier, but we made an agreement with his head coach in Minnesota that we would leave him alone because he wanted to come back to win a national championship, which I thought was great. So we saved our money for that year, but we ponied it up because we knew we were going to get him the following year. He was motivated by the dollar. He wasn't a wrestling fan, but he kind of thought that the lifestyle, guys like me and you may not have the benefits that Brock Lesnar gets, but if I could be Brock Lesnar, I'm in. I'll take that deal. But the roster was big and we looked at it, and I always said that the key element or trait for any talent that I ever signed was reliability. Yep, those were good old JR's words. Put it simply, Brock loved that money. Born in 1977 in South Dakota, Lesnar had always been an exceptional athlete, excelling in multiple sports, including football, not the thing that we over here call soccer, I don't think. That would be a terrifying game. And wrestling, thanks to his natural aptitude and exceptional and obvious strength. His standout achievement came in college wrestling, where he dominated at the University of Minnesota, winning the NCAA Division I Heavyweight Championship in 2000. A multi-tool player, Lesnar's size, power, and speed made him a formidable competitor. But experts in the field all noted that it was his raw athleticism that set him apart from other amateur wrestlers. And thanks to the hard work of Ross and Briscoe, when both sides could agree on the timing, Lesnar was ready to go pro via what was by then the company's chief feeder league, Ohio Valley Wrestling, OVW. In OVW, Brock quickly became known as a once-in-a-generation pro wrestling athlete too. He was a physical specimen, standing at 6 foot 3 inches tall and weighing 280 pounds of granite muscle. Yet he moved with the speed and agility of someone far lighter, like me. I'm probably like a quarter of that size. His shooting star press beggared belief, earning the turn-of-the-century version of virality amongst wrestling fans when it became globally accessible from Napster-adjacent places alongside clips of the first-ever Van Terminator and Sid's horrific WCW Sin leg break. Oh, we've all seen them, and we wish we hadn't with the latter. The comparison with the latter would one day cut a little too close to the bone too, but more on that later. In the heady early days, it was just another case of prodigious talent making the impossible probable. It was impossible as a fan not to immediately recognize his potential. And in March 2002, one night removed from Wrestlemania, Brock made his debut on WWE television. From the moment he arrived, it was clear that WWE had big plans for the prodigious powerhouse. Midway through a hardcore title melee featuring Al Snow, Maven, and Spike Dudley, Lesnar stepped into the ring as if from nowhere, and without a word, easily just brutalized all three of them. Lesnar picked Snow up effortlessly and delivered a brutal spinebuster onto a trash can, sending a clear message that he was a force to be reckoned with his very first move. Lesnar unleashed a move that would soon be known as the F5 onto Maven, sending him crashing to the mat. But the rampage did not end there. Oh, no. Spike Dudley, uniquely emboldened by the sight of his fellow opponents being utterly destroyed, tried to make a move against Lesnar and, well, it was futile. The runt of the litter snapped a broom handle across Lesnar's head and chest, but it had no effect whatsoever because, of course, it didn't look at him as a scary man. Instead, Brock trucked him with a video game-like lariat before launching Spike into the air with a jaw-dropping triple powerbomb. Each impact sent shockwaves through the ring, leaving Spike incapacitated. On commentary, Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler noted with disgust and shock, respectively, that Paul Heyman was by Lesnar's side, barking instructions and very much in the ear of Raw's new, clear and present danger. This right here was as key to the early success of the push as anything else that Lesnar had in his arsenal. Few managers had Heyman's credibility by 2002, so much so that the former ECW boss and future wise man and advocate branded himself as an agent to further distance himself from the chasing pack. Quick question time, my friends, before we go any further with this video. I want to know right now, who is your favorite manager, advocate, agent, person in wrestling history? Is it Paul Heyman? Is it someone else? Let me know in the comments right down below. Now back to this backstage tale. Within months, Lesnar became a central figure in WWE's programming, and by SummerSlam 2002, he was King of the Ring winner, fresh off of bloodying Hulk Hogan out of the door, and believably pitched as new WWE champion following a win over The Rock. Yeah, not a bad couple of months, that, is it? The victory was a testament to the newcomer's extraordinary and extraordinarily believable abilities. At just 25, he was already one of the most dominant forces in the industry and one of the most dominant forces the industry had ever seen. What made Brock's rise even more impressive and eye-catching was how quickly he adapted to the entertainment side of pro wrestling, blending his real-life toughness with WWE's increasingly warped version of reality on screen. He was one of the few remaining cases in the company of the real self with the volume turned up mentality actually working. And the next big thing moniker wasn't just a marketing gimmick. It reflected the genuine belief in Brock's potential to carry WWE out of its glum present and into a brighter, fresher future. Hell, by the end of the calendar year, he'd achieved more in his short time on WWE's main roster than many wrestlers do with an entire career. His once-in-a-generation / lifetime skill set trumped everything else, and audiences were becoming as enamored with his energy, his dominance, and his undeniable potential as his bosses. Brock's rise created a much-needed narrative of there being some new blood coming in to challenge the status quo too. I mean, great if it meant booting Triple H and The Undertaker out of their spots, but all eyes turned to a pairing that should have been more obvious from the off. Somebody else had brought with him a similar CV, a similar skill set, and a similar meteoric rise. And he was, by this time, one of the few pillars staying firm around crumbling foundations. Oh, it's true, and that is the last time I'll do that, I swear. Kurt Angle's rise from amateur standout to Olympic gold medalist to WWE superstar was a journey marked by immense dedication, unmatched skill, and a willingness to sacrifice everything for success. Born in 1968, Angle was outstanding at amateur level, rising to prominence during his time at Clarion University of Pennsylvania. His impressive wrestling accomplishments paved the way for his eventual success on the world stage, in front of the brightest lights the level affords, the Olympic Games. He won gold in freestyle wrestling in Atlanta in 1996, despite suffering a serious neck injury, or broken freaking neck as he put it, just days before the event. His tenacity in the face of adversity became the defining characteristic of his career, and it resonated with fans across the world. Winning gold in Atlanta made Angle a household name, but it also introduced him to a new world when faced with the difficult next step career-wise: professional wrestling. The transition wasn't easy, nor immediate, and away from his own trepidations, his first experience almost scared him away for good. Looking to explore any potential post-Olympic career paths, Angle accepted the invitation of Paul Heyman, ECW's mastermind promoter and booker, to attend a taping at the fabled ECW Arena in October 1996. It was an earnest attempt to lure him there before the big boys got a look, not least because Extreme Championship Wrestling was far more forward-looking than both majors when it came to in-ring action. That wasn't Angle's takeaway by the end of the night, though. Oh, no. One of the segments on that show became one of the most controversial moments in ECW history. And that is saying something. The crucifixion angle that played out as part of the intense storyline involving Raven and the Sandman. Raven and his flock ambushed Sandman after a match, beat him down, and proceeded to tie him to a large wooden cross using barbed wire, arms outstretched in a posture unmistakably resembling Jesus Christ on the cross. To make the religious symbolism even more overt, a crown of barbed wire was placed on Sandman's head as well. Lovely. Even the raucous live crowd, known for embracing ECW's wildest antics, fell eerily silent here, unsure how to react. Backstage, Angle was furious. A devout Christian, he was deeply offended by the imagery and the blatant use of religious iconography for shock value. Reports from the time say that Angle confronted Paul Heyman and others behind the scenes to make it crystal clear that he did not want to be associated with what had just transpired. He demanded that ECW never air the footage of his smile and wave appearance from that same night, fearing the blowback of an association with such an Angle damaging his reputation, particularly given his wholesome image as an Olympic hero in the aftermath of Atlanta. And as it turned out, the newcomer had accurately gauged the temperature. In response to the backlash, Raven later issued an apology to the audience in the building, and the Angle was removed from general circulation too. The cool reality of something getting out of hand and being infinitely more fascinating than anything that actually took place on camera was nothing new to pro wrestling, but it was brand new to an amateur that already didn't exactly have the requisite respect for what the business could be when it wasn't accidentally eating itself from the inside. Ironically, in real life, Sandman constructed the cross himself, highlighting how important cooperation and teamwork was for any endeavor to work in the industry. What might have been something of a PR disaster with the cameras rolling was just another collaborative production behind the scenes. On more than one occasion in the future, Angle would have to fight for real to prove his credentials in the worked world. But in the preparation stages, this had been anything but an internal battle. In many respects, it could not have been a worse glimpse into the world that the Olympian would one day go on to excel in. It was a weird first step, but if nothing else, it revealed that he had decent instincts for what made sense for him in the pro wrestling space. He'd eventually be brought back into Heyman's orbit in a way that neither man could have imagined. And by then, he had shocked and delighted the world in a manner even more spectacular and unexpected than during his Olympic peak. Right, before we go any further, if you are having fun with this tale from Backstage, then tap that subscribe button down below, and you'll get even more fascinating What Culture Wrestling stuff that you can enjoy each and every day. Now back to Kurt and Brock. So Kurt Angle ultimately signed with WWE in 1998 after a lot of initial institutionalized skepticism. Thanks to just about every influence on him during his formative years at amateur and Olympic level, he had previously dismissed professional wrestling as beneath a legitimate Olympic gold medalist, and the aforementioned ECW situation didn't exactly do much to change his mind. However, the more the opportunities to capitalize on his achievements dried up, the more his stance softened. The bedfellows were not that strange after all, and few proved that quicker and more effectively than Kurt Angle. Debuting on screens at Survivor Series 1999 after a year working in the company's feeder system and several months of dark matches, Angle shocked audiences with his natural charisma, comic timing, and athletic prowess. Within months, it was clear that WWE had unearthed a gem, but within minutes, it was clear that Angle himself was the one to lead yet another gold rush. Angle's initial faux babyface persona was rooted in the clean-cut, all-American hero persona that had become cruelly passé. He encouraged fans to live by the 3 I's: intensity, integrity, and intelligence, but did so with a tone-deaf smugness that stood in total opposition to pop culture's leanings at the time, and WWE's own Attitude Era. Instead of supporting him, fans rejected his holier-than-thou attitude and smugness, understanding the assignment as well as Angle himself. He sucked, didn't he? His first significant storylines involved feuds with other wrestlers who mocked or downplayed his Olympic achievements. But the likes of Chris Jericho and Rikishi were made to suffer the consequences when actually locking up with the all-smiling, milk-guzzling buffoon. This was the inherent genius of the bit, and not something the company were truly able to explore until the first babyface turn. Angle could seriously go, and fans know to back a winner when they see one. It was too much fun hating his obnoxiousness. But bell to bell, he was proving himself and building a rock-solid foundation for when his obvious brilliance could be celebrated. In just a few months, Angle had become a top-tier talent capable of working with virtually anyone on the roster. He perfected his naive heel character and nailed comedic timing in lockstep during a time where WWE's in-house humor had never been sharper. He then added the the rom to the com in the summer with one of the era's most celebrated storylines that yet again confirmed where he sat in the pecking order. His snake-like attempts to steal Stephanie McMahon's affections from her husband, Triple H, were at first played for gags, before unleashing a sinister side so effective that it turned the game babyface. That is impressive. Sure, the feud ended with a bit of a whimper when Hunter insisted that he go over with the belief that fans just would not buy McMahon choosing Angle. Okay, Chips. But by then, Kurt had done more than enough to prove himself worthy of the top spot anyway. He won the WWE Championship in October, 11 months after his debut, cementing his best rookie year ever status, and the spot really hasn't been challenged since, has it? Like, no one's really come close to topping that rookie year, have they? Or if they have, you know what? Let me know who you think is the best rookie of all time in the comments below. Just do it. Why not? Let's have some fun. By 2002, his versatility had put him in a category of his own. From high-profile singles matches to multi-man bouts in the midst of a badly blown invasion he somehow managed to thrive within anyway, Angle's improbable abilities in just about every category made him a rare commodity during a difficult and transitional time for wrestling writ large. With multiple WWE championships and main event runs to his name, Angle made his 3 years in the game look like 30, and the rest of the locker room looked to him as one of the top performers in the industry. His reputation as a workhorse all-rounder made him peerless. Until, as is often the case, somebody dared to present themselves as a peer. Lesnar's rise was mirroring Kurt's, and their similar backgrounds only enhanced the fantasy warfare element of a potential showdown between the two. The sharks of the locker room circled in such a way that made confrontation inevitable. But the small matter of them doing actual business together seemed to be an obstacle in the way of any sort of Brett-Shawn locker room confrontation blowing up first. Friendly competition, though? Now, the exact catalyst for the fight is often debated, but Angle explained his side in interviews and in his autobiography, It's True, It's True. According to Angle, the tension between the two had quietly been building for some time, and played up by a locker room full of faux alphas that wanted to see which one of the real ones had it in them to take out the other. Buoyed by his early successes and a lifetime of dominance in his chosen fields, Lesnar was known to be getting a bit cocky, especially with the attention he was receiving for his physical prowess and quick success in WWE. He was a big deal, wasn't he? Angle was a seasoned pro by comparison, and felt that Lesnar was being disrespectful and failing to understand the delicate politics of wrestling in the locker room. Gotta respect the business and all that. The situation finally came to a head when Angle reportedly overheard Lesnar saying something about him. Oh boy. The words allegedly came across as the next big thing, challenging and/or questioning Angle's credibility and skills, which infuriated the Olympian. Determined to set the record straight and, given the nature of both men's backgrounds, restore the status quo when it came to the backstage court of public opinion, confrontation became inevitable, taking place in a locker room and/or hallway during a WWE taping in 2002. Angle confronted Lesnar, and things quickly escalated from verbal tension to a physical confrontation. With both men using their amateur backgrounds, Angle asserts that it was as much about establishing dominance as they locked up in a tussle. He went on to describe the fight as being intensely physical, but pointed out that neither man was seriously injured, so, that's a good thing. And that though it didn't go on for a long time, his ability to get the upper hand was enough to send a message. He credited his superior technique and experience, especially in terms of controlling the position and maintaining leverage, for giving him the edge. And according to Angle, he was able to take Lesnar down and maintain control, though he did not make it an all-out victory like a formal wrestling match. Now, it is worth noting that the situation might have been different from Lesnar's point of view. Known for not saying much about anything unless he's on the clock, Lesnar didn't really talk about the altercation in detail, and many wrestlers have alluded to the fact that there was at least a mutual respect baked into the competitive rivalry regardless of who really won and lost. There at very least wasn't any official punishment for either wrestler. Both men continued their careers without diversion, and while the fight was an open secret, it didn't seem to have lasting negative effects. In fact, respect for both went up. In the eyes of the many, Angle and Lesnar had the guts to settle their differences physically, and in a way that didn't involve the drama that is often associated with politics in the wrestling business. In that respect, it was unlike any real-life fight in the checkered history of backstage squabbles. I'm sure we'll cover a few more at some point in the future. It was absolutely crucial to get it out of the way anyway. Paul Heyman was the creative head of a wrestling-heavy era of SmackDown that featured both men prominently, and was once again about to feature prominently in the lives of both en route to a worked contest that had been on the company's dry erase board for years. And with the emotions seemingly expunged, there was some serious business to be done. Now, the rivalry between Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle was one of the most anticipated storylines in WWE during an otherwise creatively barren early 2000s. But the company understood the importance of timing and positioning when it came to their eventual first on-screen collision. The market leader knew that the battle had immense potential, and a credible feud between arguably the two most credible signees ever could serve as the centerpiece of the company's post-Attitude Era future. However, the Paul Heyman-led creative team also recognized that such a monumental match needed to be built up properly, with both men maintaining different kinds of dominance in the eyes of the fans. As a result, and in direct contrast to what was taking place behind the scenes, they were kept separate on screen for much of 2002. The strategy was simple enough. WWE were building towards a WrestleMania 19 headliner. And what a headliner! Ahead of setting the wheels in motion, Brock's meteoric rise was presented as the beginning of a new era in WWE, while Kurt dropped to the tag division in a faux veteran role to obscure what was to come. At the back end of the year, that man again, Heyman, turned heel on Brock, and through a slightly circuitous route ended up alongside Angle as he became champion instead. This ostensibly cleared the way for Lesnar to win the Royal Rumble as a babyface and cement his status as the top star, top guy, and top face with a show of shows win. But nothing was to go as simply as that. Oh no. By the climax of the show of shows, WWE most likely would have preferred something resembling the real Backstage fight. It's a damn miracle the match even got to the ring. In the weeks leading up to the event, it was revealed that Kurt Angle would need significant time off to deal with a serious re-aggravated neck injury and with immediate effect. Chris Benoit was positioned as a potential replacement, having recently been in and around the main events himself. And the dream match between the two like-for-likes was apparently as good as done. To this end, WWE even promoted the match for a pre-WrestleMania edition of SmackDown that appeared to be an excuse for an early title switch. Miraculously, this served as confirmation that the match was actually set to go ahead. In a brilliant twist and second playing of a trick on the audience by WWE and the Angle family, Kurt's real-life brother and convincing lookalike Eric stepped in as a distraction in order for Kurt to steal the win. Genius stuff. It did not get the Olympian out of his title obligations, nor WWE out of the match at WrestleMania. And yet more questions were asked about how Kurt could possibly walk out of WrestleMania in one piece. As we'd come to find out though, it wasn't him we should have been worried about. The man who won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck made it through a WrestleMania main event with the same prognosis. And in fact, expedited an unlikely comeback that very same year through some pioneering non-invasive surgery. Meanwhile, a fully fit and healthy Lesnar on the way in was almost in an even worse state than Angle himself on the way out. The shooting star press that he'd wowed OVW fans with on his ascendancy had not yet been rolled out under the bright lights of main roster WWE. And the botched attempts seen around the world on the grandest stage became all the main event was ultimately remembered for. The ominous sight of Brock being just a bit too far away from Kurt before he leaps is bad enough. But the freeze frame shot of the airborne Brock upside down as he under-rotates and effectively tombstones himself is as chilling as anything the mind's eye can conjure from the real fight that the pair had months prior. It's still a rough watch to this day, man. I wince every time. Infamously, though Lesnar miraculously survived without more serious long-term damage, he knocked himself clean out in the moment. And there are stars in his eyes as Kurt effectively F5s himself to pull a finish out of the fire. The support and cooperation is miraculous here. I know I've said that word a lot, but no, seriously, it is. And to juxtapose that with the sight of the two grappling for dominance in an arena corridor somewhere is the sort of mental image only a wrestling fan gets to conjure. Fiercely competitive in every single respect, there were no compromises on quality granted in the worked contest any more than there were ones afforded in the real fight. Now, Lesnar might have been acting on, in hindsight, bad advice in attempting the dangerous move for the first time in over a year after his most arduous and high-pressure match ever. But he was also driven to be the very best in his field, as he had been in every aspect of his life. Angle was seemingly ignoring good advice, even going out there, but his fire simply could not be extinguished either. And the man himself would later go on to show that there were times that he was willing to risk more than the head on his shoulders in an endless quest to prove himself without compare. The two went on to feud throughout the summer, with the dynamic switched after a Lesnar heel turn, before the next big thing left the wrestling business behind for the fat end of a decade in 2004. Just 2 years and millions of dollars on from his debut. Only then did the difference between the two men reveal itself. Brock made no secret of his desire to get off the human meat grinder that was the WWE road schedule, having suddenly looked towards bigger and different dreams in the NFL and ultimately the UFC. Angle, meanwhile, couldn't. The quest to be the best just never stopped for him, and while a younger Lesnar prioritized new goals and renewed health, his enemy-turned-friend simply could not switch off the desire to own the pro wrestling space, even when it nearly took everything from him. He was a wrestling machine, for better and worse. Unlike many cases of contemporaries coming to very real blows, or in this case, holds in locker rooms without cameras, Angle and Lesnar's scrap remains more of a footnote in their respective stories. What Angle managed through peerless consistency in the 2000s, Lesnar cracked through star power and aura in the 2010s. What both of them incredibly managed was to leave enough of a mark on a field that neither of them chose as a first love to make it look as if it was all they were born to do. The scandal of the scuffle was left to gather dust as the men at the center of the lockup made sure to do more when the red light was on rather than when the red mist descended. Right, if you enjoyed this tale from Backstage, then go and check out the first episode from this new series right here. Go on, give it a tap, have a good time. It's been lovely talking to you, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.